All right, welcome to the Gulf Coast Blitz here on FortHSFootball.com and FortHSFootball.com social media platforms. I'm your host, Joshua Wilson, and follow us on social media at FortHSFootball. That includes Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and YouTube. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. And also click that notification bell when we go live or when we post new content here. And then, of course, follow us on X/Twitter. That is at FLAHS Football. All right, to kind of get the table set here for this Monday night here of September 23rd, 2024. We're going to do recapping a lot of stuff here from the Blitz lines coming up here. And then, of course, we have the pick six later on. And then, of course, we got Landlin May and Dylan Oliver from Polkway to join us to talk about some Polk County football and some of the other games they have seen so far this year. Of course, Polk County action is already going to be a little wide, interesting this week in terms of the schedule because some games are already being moved up to tomorrow night due to potential Hurricane Helen out there in the Caribbean. Eventually, will be in the Gulf, and we'll talk to them about that as well. Of course, again, you're watching here this Gulf Coast Blitz here on FortHSFootball.com, and I just saw this come across here as I was getting ready to go here, and to what I have found out of was shared by the Nature Coast Tech football coach, head coach Rob Casimir. Hernando County schools to close ahead of the storm, so school closures already being announced Wednesday and Thursday for Hernando County. So we don't know what the status of football games are going to be for Friday night in Hernando County. But again, go to FortHSFootball.com. We've got a live blog going on there. I haven't made any updates recently in the last couple hours, but I'll update it as often as I can here. With updates as we get ready for whatever could happen here this week in terms of what the week 6 schedule is going to look like here in terms of what the impacts are going to be from potential Hurricane Helen. But we got some comments already dropping in the box here, and we'll get to some of those as well here along the way here as we talk about some of the teams here that we have on the Blitz lines here. And with that said, well, how about that? We will roll into the Blitz lines here, recapping everything from week 5 here on the Gulf Coast Blitz. And, of course, Fort Myers outlast Charlotte in 42-21. And, of course, a battle of undefeated teams there. For Fort Myers, for the Green Wave, Dominic Aradenzano. I've tried to pronounce his name several times before I even went on there. Aradenzano. And he basically didn't have his best night in the passing game, being intercepted twice and only completing 9 of 21 passing attempts. But, however, for Fort Myers, it was the rushing game. They had 5 rushing touchdowns combined between 4 different players here. And McCray Thompson had 2 of those touchdowns for the Green Wave. And Tegan LePage for Charlotte had 135 yards and 2 passing touchdowns, while the other 7 for Jeremiah Minifield came from Jeremiah Minifield, I should say, off of one of those interceptions that was thrown by Dominic Erderzano, and he went and returned that for 90 yards and on that pick 6 return. But Charlotte falls to 3-1 on the year. Fort Myers improves to 5-0, and we say, hey, the Fort Myers Green Wave they're rolling along here halfway through the season, and one of the teams that still undefeated here as we roll into week 6. All right, rolling into this one. South Sumter went backwards last week, 1-4 now on the season after losing to Hawthorne 26-20, and not the kind of place I thought the Raiders would be at. Also, not the kind of place I thought when entering district play. I didn't think they would be here. Hawthorne, second team in the same number of weeks that edge out South Sumter at Inman Sherman Field. And it was 12-10 at halftime, but Hawthorne swung open a 14-point third quarter, and South Sumter tried to mount the comeback in the fourth quarter, but that didn't end well for the Raiders. And now South Sumter is 1-4, and Hawthorne moves to 1-4 on the year. All right, the hot streak continues for Cardinal Mooney, and we got some comments about Cardinal Mooney coming here, but Cardinal Mooney, 11. The hot streak continues, and they're on an 11-game winning streak that dates back to October 27th of last year, and the host Vikings beat Bishop Moreau 49-28 last week, and The Cougars kind of basically shut down Vikings quarterback Carter Smith and limiting him to 118 yards passing. And Cardinal Mooney, 26 first downs last Friday night, and according to the Sarasota Herald Tribune, and Cardinal Mooney now 5-0 in the season, and Bishop Road falls to 3-2, and Angelina Jacobs House says Cardinal Mooney, the new emerging Gulf Coast private school power, she's been HBC head Jared Clark building something that is meant to last. It seems thoughts. Well, here he's done a pretty good job, and being able to put Cardinal Mooney back on the map, and of course, winning that state championship last year was a huge statement win there for the Cougars, and good for them to be able to get that state championship. The first time in over 40 years they won a state championship. And Angelina also said didn't realize until today Cocoa and Cardinal Mooney are in the same classification. Yes, they are in the same classification. And that game against Cocoa and Venice, we'll talk about that here in a few minutes here. But Cocoa and Venice and Cardinal Mooney, you can see those three teams in the state final. And I agree, there's a potential chance we can see all three of those teams in the state championship game coming up here in December. All right, rolling along here in the rundown here, as we see here on the side here for the blitz lines. Delays don't slow down. Lakeland against Booker T. Washington, and of course, looking at that. Oh, wait a second, what happened here? I had another headline, and I did not have it on there in this thing. I don't know why I skipped over that, because I also had the Tampa Bay Tech thing. Let me go to that for a moment. Somehow I skipped that when I was building up the lineup here. But let's talk about Tampa Bay Tech and Gaylor for real quick, and then I'll talk about Booker T. Washington and Lakeland here. All right, so Tampa Bay Tech, the number 8, number 9 teams in Class 5A, they met. It was the number 8 visiting Titans. They handed the Cowboys their second loss of the season, and the offensive stats weren't pretty for Tampa Bay Tech. I'm going to tell you that right now. Darian Jones limited to 82 yards passing, had a passing touchdown along with a rushing touchdown, and really at the end of the day, Tyson Stroud an interception returned for 90 yards on a pick six against for the Titans, and against EJ Archeld from Gaylor, the quarterback there, and LeJace Harold recorded 2 sacks for Gaylor, but at the end of the night, it was a 28-7 victory for the Tampa Bay Tech Titans. And now we can roll along and talk about Lakeland. The slow start doesn't delay Lakeland against Booker T. Washington, and 48-13 for the Dreadnoughts, and gives Lakeland their 10th straight win dating back to October 27th of last year. And of course, how about this? 7 total touchdowns were scored by the Dreadnoughts in 5 different ways: 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 receiving touchdowns, a fumble recovery, an interception return, and a kickoff return. Hello, you can do that all the way around. And wow. It's not every day we can report that something like that happens in a game like that, where you have touchdowns in 5 different ways. And pretty much there's 6 different ways you can score touchdowns, and the only one that they didn't have was a kickoff return on a punt return. So a punt return touchdowns, I should say. Anyways, Lakeland 4-0 now. Booker T. Washington 2-2 on the year. I'm sure Nully's going to be happy if Nully's watching. Nully, I haven't seen a comment from you yet, so I know you're probably watching. But hey, Lakeland 4-0. Hey, big win. Mother Nature didn't even wreck tonight, so there you go. All right. Now we get to this one. Late field goal gives Venice victory over Cocoa, but it doesn't come without some kind of controversy. And I say that because there was some video of Coach Ryan Schneider from Cocoa, and he was kind of miffed on a couple of calls from the officiating crew, and man, that's it makes you wonder. It kind of reminds me of the similar situation last year when they were playing St. Thomas Aquinas, and I was like, But at the end of the day, late field goal for Venice, 54-51. Brady Hart, though, how about this? He sliced and diced basically through the Venice Indian defense, 527 yards passing, and not the thing. We got to make sure that for Venice's quarterback, Jace Nixon, 18 of 29 pass completions. But again, Brady Hart just really did a lot of damage there against the Indians defense. And I've always questioned Venice's defense after week 1. And again, Venice has no defense. They have given up more than 40 points per game every single game this year, even though they're 5-0. I don't know how you can tell. It's hard to think when the last time I've seen in 15 years of doing this in high school football where a team has given up more than 40 points per game, but is 5-0 at the midway point of the season. I cannot name another team that has done this. Venice may be the first one that's done this in like ages. And honestly, if Venice's defense doesn't get cleaned up, it's eventually going to catch up to them. It almost caught up to them here in the game against Cocoa, but at some point, the Venice will catch up to them here in this. But looking at some of the other stats here, Nicholas Teeter had 157 yards receiving for touchdown for Cocoa. Jamin Boggs 253 yards and 10 catches, 3 touchdowns. I mean, honestly, that is really good. But Winston Watkins from Venice did seal the game for good, picking off a late pass from Brady Hart. So Brady Hart had no interceptions until just right down at the last minute. So, but we got the comments coming in here now. This is what gets really good here for the here on the show here. And Nolly is very happy with the knots, and of course Angelina Jacobs is saying, hey, maybe agreeing on the official officiating a little bit. We'll see what happens there, but. And yes, I agree. A lot of blowing coverage by Vince. That is an issue right there. There has been a lot of blowing coverages this year by the Indians. And honestly, for me, I can tell you this, that's not going to win you a state championship if you keep them blowing coverages. And we kind of maybe saw that last year in the state championship game against Lakeland. So, again, a lot of blowing coverage for Venice here. And Nolly is saying that the Indians win a title, they will own the record for the most points given up. I actually agree with you there, Nolly. That probably most likely will happen. And Emery Smith says wacky scores coming out of Venice this year. I mean, every week it's like, how many points did Venice give up? What? So I am just like, man, oh man. All right, trying to roll through the headlines here as we go through here because we've got our guest, Landlin May from Polkway is on, getting ready to be on here in a few minutes here. But let's roll along here. Talk about Zephyr Hills. They rolled Gulf in the rivalry game there. And how about this? Roe Miller's 3 rushing touchdowns and Xavier Jensen's 118 yards passing and 2 touchdowns helped the Bulldogs win their second straight game and got the Bulldogs back up to 3-2 on the season. Mitchell and Wiregrass Ranch still undefeated. We're headed to that big October 11th showdown between the two county rivals and in district play. And Mustangs took care of Tampa Catholic 31-14. Wiregrass Ranch smothered rival Wesley Chapel 51-12. And with that said, we head over into Polk County where there's several teams remaining undefeated. Victory Christian, Lakeland Christian, Mulberry, all undefeated right now. Victory Christian 4-0 after defeating Fort Meade 23-20. Lakeland Christian is number 7 in the Class 1A poll from last week. Beat George Jenkins 41-3, and Mulberry surprisingly it's a good start at 4-0, and they defeated Discovery 47-0 this week. And of course Mulberry and Hardy this week, and that's one game we'll talk about on the Pick 6 coming up here in a little bit. Armwood rolled through Hillsboro, rising to number 1 last week in Class 6A. The Hawks took care of the Terriers 49-7. That sets up the showdown this week against Plant, who has been kind of seeing its ups and downs here. But Armwood 5-0 on the year. How about Tampa Jefferson's 5-0? Yes, the Tampa Jefferson Dragons. Yes, 5-0 on the season. They moved to number 9 in our 3A poll last week in 45-21 over Tampa Freedom. How about this? This was a stat when I was looking at the statistics here for Jefferson. They have won more games now in the first 5 weeks of this season compared to the last 2 years, and they were combined 3-7 in 2022 and 2023. So Joseph Mandula's team, hats off to you right there. Oh, no, hit the wrong button. There we go. Was going for the applause because that deserves a round of applause. You're 5-0 after being 3-17 the last 2 years. So hats off there. Largo and Tarpon Springs. There's the appropriate response there. They both fall. They're not. Largo fell to Clearwater 23-18. Tarpon Springs to Eastlake 44-34. And you can say, well, the games are not blowout losses. That ends the great starts by both the Packers and the Spongers. And leaves Pinellas County with only one undefeated team in 11-man football, and that is Clearwater Central Catholic. And of course, Sarasota Riverview bounced back against. I got it right here. They bounced back at home against Class 3A number 6 Booker, and handing Booker their second loss of the season, 41-30. And this gives Rams momentum going into the opening week of district play. So, yes, indeed. How about Naples running, bouncing back against Golden Gate, a team that they actually lost to last year, by the way. And that was they shut out the Titans this year, 41-0. And the Golden Eagles are preparing for that big Southwest Florida matchup against Dunbar, and that'll be a part of the Pick Six coming up here in a little bit. And of course, Storms don't delay First Baptist in running over Port Charlotte. And honestly, First Baptist is looking really good. A Class 1A team. Remember, 2 years ago, they won the Class 1S state championship over Trinity Catholic. And we'll say that First Baptist could be into contentions to make a run in 1A here, but we'll see, because Chaminade Madonna is still sitting there. There's a Clearwater Central Catholic. We'll see, but a deep playoff run not out of the question there for Naples First Baptist. And with that said, that's the Blitz lines here for week number 6 going into week 6, I should say, out of week 5. And we're going to take a quick break here. We're going to take our 2-minute water break, and then we're going to have Landlin May coming on, joining us from Polkway. I don't know if Dylan's going to be able to join on, but we'll have Landlin on for sure. And we're going to take that water break, and we'll be back here in 2 minutes here on the Gulf Coast Blitz here on FortHSFootball.com. All right, welcome back here on the Gulf Coast Blitz here. And joining us now is Landlin May from Polkway. We were supposed to have him on a few weeks ago, but due to a couple other things, we didn't get Landlin on when we had Hassani on. But we got Landlin on this time around. And Landlin, appreciate you taking some time to talk to us here. And I know there's some things that, I mean, already you were the first to break that Lakeland already moved their games to tomorrow night. And things are kind of getting a little interesting there in Polk County. But first and foremost, let's talk about what you've seen so far here through the first 5 weeks. And I think, the first thing I want to say is that Lakeland's being Lakeland again. And that I think that everybody can agree with there on that one.
Yeah, they're definitely back to, what we expect from the Dreadnoughts. Very, very, very talented defense, quarterback return, but huge shout out. And, he needs a lot more acknowledgement. Shenard Clower has been possibly the most phenomenal player in the entire state of Florida this year. I mean, you talk about carrying against Lake Mary. If not for him, they don't have any of their touchdowns. So he's been that type of player all season, and he definitely needs more acknowledgement.
No, absolutely, and and everybody's like on a couple of shows, ago, everybody's like, well, there's more to just Lakeland and Polk County, but Lakeland's been the story. But let's talk about this because there are some other stories here in Polk County alone. Of course, Lakeland's on that path probably to a state championship, most likely Class 5A, where we know that there may be a potential showdown with St. Thomas Aquinas in the state championship. We'll see how that plays out. But how about a team that I think a lot of people are not giving a lot of talk to, and I think they're flying under the radar is Mulberry down in the south in the Polk County. I mean 4-0. I mean that's a surprise to me. If you had Mulberry at 4-0 going into their district game against Hardy on the bingo card, please come to the pay window and collect because I did not have that on my bingo card.
Yeah, so I've been pretty vocal about Mulberry. Since the spring, they were dominant. They played the Jamboree style of spring, where they only got two quarters against each squad, but they absolutely dominated against Victory and against Davenport. They look really good, and they have a lot of transfers that are from the Lakeland area. So if you know anything about Mulberry, it's basically a suburb of Lakeland. So, they have kids from Kathleen, they have kids from Bartow, they have kids from Lakeland who, might have not gotten as much, shine or playtime over the past few years. So, they come into Mulberry, smaller program, new energy, new uniform, new turf. So all those guys, they have a reason to want to win. They feel like I won't call them the replacements because the negative connotation that comes behind it, but they're kind of a bunch of guys who were counted out and now have come together and they have a purpose. They're Mulberry has been the ultimate underdogs. If you look at the Polk County 7-on-7 tournament that's hosted every summer by Coach Irvin, Mulberry won, and they played against teams like Auburndale, like Lake Wells, like so they played against some of the heavy like the Bartows. They played against some of the better teams and the bigger schools in Polk County and showed, hey, we're just as dominant.
No, absolutely. And how about Lake Wells? I mean, they gave Seminole everything they could. It ended up snapping that 28 game win streak in the regular season on Friday night. And I mean, I was concerned about that for one or two things. I looked back on, okay, you played Sebring only to a 1 point game. And that was like my concern. Like they're going into that game was like, hey, this is a game they're going to end up losing because of that. And sure enough, it come true. I mean, what is it about Lake Wells here that we can learn about them at this particular point, and with just looking at how they're not really racking up the points they were like 2 years ago when they won the Class 3 state title.
Right. So that team was phenomenal. You look across the board, several Division 1 guys across, from the freshman to senior class. So that team a few years ago was well put together. They had, I think, 30 interceptions. Their entire secondary did. So that team 2 years ago, phenomenal, one of the best teams in Polk County history. But this loss for Lake Wells, to me, it it honestly made me feel good about them because nobody in the state had this game being close and nobody had them favored. And like you said, they gave Seminole every single thing they had, every ounce of fight that was built into Lake Wells. They left it out on the field that night. And Seminole is possibly a team that we'll see compete for a state championship. So to see Lake Wells be able to play on par with a program like Seminole, it actually made me feel really good about the program to an extent of their strength of schedule the past 2 years hasn't been anything impressive. So
No, yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So to be in a game like that and make it a dogfight, it made me feel good about the current state of Lake Wells.
No, absolutely. How about another team that is still, as I mentioned, there's a couple other teams that's still undefeated. We got Victory Christian, got Lakeland Christian. Both of those teams are still undefeated, but Lakeland Christian, I feel like they're going to face their biggest test this week against Carrollwood Day. And when I start looking at the schedule stacking up here between Lakeland Christian and Carrollwood Day, and I'll talk about this more in my pick six coming up later, but 4-0, which they had one game that was obviously washed off the map because of weather issues a few weeks ago, but when I'm looking at this, the Vikings, I mean, I don't want to discredit anything from their 4-0 record, but I feel like when they're going to go up against Carrollwood Day, it's just a strength of schedule. They haven't played that schedule that Carrollwood Day has so far. And do you feel like that is a concern there for the Vikings going into this week?
Yeah. So if you look at Carrollwood Day's schedule, you'll say, Josh, what are you talking about? Because if you look at their record, they aren't a top team like they have been traditionally.
Right. But I feel like,
But like you like you spoke to, their strength of schedule has been completely different. So they're playing juggernaut teams and juggernaut programs where they may come into this game a lot more battle tested than say an undefeated Lakeland Christian does.
no, and but do you feel like I mean at the end of the day when we're still looking at Lakeland Christian, I mean, do you feel like I mean they're ranked right now in the state, but do you feel like they have a chance to go deep in the playoffs if they can like maybe get past like a Carrollwood Day who has played that juggernaut schedule and then just kind of considering it's only a 3-team district, it's not going to take much to win the district championship and get into the playoffs.
Right. Yeah. So Lakeland Christian is always coached very, very well, and they always seem to find a way to be one of the top 8 teams or Final Four teams in their class. So I think they can figure it out, and get to one of those regional championships and squeak out a win and head to a state championship. They always get really close. It seems like, but I think this year they have a catalyst of guys who have been on the team since they were young, and they're actual ball players. So I'm excited to see what Lakeland Christian can do and how they're actually built.
No, and then of course Victory Christian, the other team that's actually in that district with the Vikings and with Carrollwood Day, and they're kind of the Storm. They've been kind of sneaking up a little quietly as well. Maybe flying under the radar for some people, but they've been one of those traditional programs there in Polk County, always in the mix for the playoffs, regardless of what the record is.
Right, and coming off a tougher year last year than what we're used to seeing from Coach Kendrick Stewart and Victor Christian, but today, this year they are back. Under another, like you said, another undefeated team. I definitely did not have them undefeated going into this point, and they have another kid who's absolutely left me, speechless. My Sean McKinley, man, he's showed up every single week for the Storm, and it's been beneficial showing that 4-0 record.
No, absolutely. And out of all the teams in Polk County or what you've seen in the 863 so far this year, which teams have been the biggest disappointments that we did not expect to be disappointments at this particular point? I feel like I could name one, potentially Winter Haven being one of those.
And so with Winter Haven, I give Coach White a bit of grace, right? He lost, I believe, 9 starters between the end of spring and August 1st.
Mm-hmm.
So, the schedule that he built or that Winter Haven built was not for the team that they have today. So that's why I'm giving Winter Haven a little grace. Definitely not the standard there, but considering where they were 2 years ago, and then Coach Thompson comes in and turns it around in year one, makes it to the playoffs, and then you're back, to where you can't win a football game a year later. So definitely disappointed to see there, and it's not completely on the staff just because of how this, you can go to any school you want to now. So with them losing that many starters between the end of spring and August 1st, it's kind of if he's doing his best, but it's hard to
No.
say disappointment. I hate to see Bartow have multiple losses there. I think they're starting to figure it out. They're calling plays that works for their offense. I got to see them this past Friday against Auburndale. So Bartow's one of the teams that I won't call them a disappointment just yet, but I didn't think they would be here. I thought they would be one of those undefeated squads that me and you would be talking about today.
No, absolutely, and I thought Bartow because Bartow had a lot of high expectations, and when they got blasted by Clearwater, I was like, well, wait a second, I didn't see that coming, so that kind of stunned me there, and especially the way that Bartow rose up last year. I mean, it was kind of shocking. Like thought, oh well, hey, they figured it out last year how to do things, and this year was okay. The expectation was to go even higher, and the bar has had to come back a little lower.
Right. Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. Now, now with that said, Landlin, which games are you going to hit up here between the next 2 days? Because I know the games are being moved around. I know Polk County is kind of moving things around, and we'll see what the other games. I know some schools are waiting until potentially Wednesday to figure out what they're going to do, but you got a few choices already on the docket for the next 2 days.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna play it by ear, and see what the weather does. But obviously I might go out to Lakeland versus Lake Gibson tomorrow just because Tuesday night game usually like a local rivalry. So it's kind of I'm excited to see how Lake Gibson will respond to only you know being able to watch 2 days or a day of film of Lakeland. And I think it's going to work to their benefit more than Lakeland's. to what people are thinking. Lakeland only has 2 days to prepare, so they could install something today, and it looks right for tomorrow. For if you're Lake Gibson, so just excited to see that one. I might go check out the George Jenkins game. I believe it's been moved to Wednesday. And I'm hearing a couple more games are still pending moving. So we'll kind of play it by ear, see what the weather's doing, see what days these games actually fall on.
No, absolutely. And of course, they can follow you at Polk_way on X/Twitter. And of course, I believe what are the handles on the Instagram? I think it's a little different than on Instagram where people can follow you as well, because I know you got a big following there on Instagram as well.
Yes, sir. So on Instagram, it is Polkway863. It's the full name. But like you said, on X/Twitter, it's Polk_way. If you type in Polkway all together, you'll find us on both.
No, absolutely. And Landlin, appreciate you being able to take a few minutes of your time. I know it's going to be a busy, interesting week for us around the state, and we'll see what happens here in Polk County coming up here later this year. But appreciate you taking some time and talking Polk County football.
Awesome. Thank you for having me on.
All right. Appreciate it. All right, everybody. That was Landlin May from Polkway joining us here on the Gulf Coast Blitz here. And as we roll along here with everything here, we got a lot to talk about here coming up here on the Pick Six. Of course, we mentioned Mulberry. That's one of the teams that we're going to talk about, Lakeland Christian. And I know there's some comments here. We're going to get to those comments as well here. And, hey, I love it that we can agree to disagree on some of these comments, and I love that. And we'll talk about that coming up here in a few minutes. But we're going to take our second water break, and then we're going to come back. And we're going to do the fan question of the week. We're going to ask some, answer some questions and answer some of the comments that we've got sitting here in the comment box. And we'll go from there and then do the Pick Six. We'll be right back after this 2-minute water break right here on the Gulf Coast Blitz here on FortHSFootball.com. All right, welcome back here to the Gulf Coast Blitz here on FortHSFootball.com, and we got a lot of comments in the box here, and a lot of interesting. There's some questions here. I think, or maybe it's more comments than anything else. But how about this? Emery Williams Smith chimes in. Hardy will be the first team Mulberry has faced this year that has had at least a 50% winning percentage. Every team Mulberry has played so far this year is either winless or has one win, and yeah, I agree with you that on that one, Emery, but we'll talk about more about that in a moment in the Pick Six here, because that game is actually my first game up on the docket here between Mulberry and Hardy, and we'll talk about that coming up here in a moment here, because I'm just kind of curious to see if how that game's going to actually go, but we'll see, because I know I was talking to Emery earlier. they're not certain if the game's going to get moved or not. They're kind of wondering what's going to happen there, but we'll roll with it there as the game is going to go on as normal for Friday night, 7:30 kickoff. We'll talk about that moment coming up here in a moment here. And Angelina Jacobs House says Carrollwood Day ain't all that this year, and they lost to the average plant team 2014. But that was, that goes back to the first couple of weeks, and that tells you say that tells you all you need about Carrollwood Day. My thing about this is that yes, Carrollwood Day may not be the same Carrollwood Day we've seen the last couple of years, but when you play the schedule that you have played, I have to give Carrollwood Day the credit for playing that schedule. I mean, come on, let's think about it for a moment. Plant, yes, I get it. Plant's 2-3, but Plant's a state semifinals from last year. Let's think about that one for a moment. Okay, Plant has also played some, tough teams too along their way on their schedule, and they got Armwood this week. So I mean, I get it. Plant's 2-3. I get it that Carrollwood Day is 2-3. I get it on both sides of this, but I really think the tough schedule helps Carrollwood Day into some degree when it comes to this game against Lakeland Christian. Hey, I may be wrong. And you know what? I'll eat proverbial crow if I'm wrong next week. Right? Or if the game gets postponed, we'll come back and revisit this whenever that happens. We'll see what happens. But anyways, with that said here, we're going to get the pick six going here. And there we go. Yes. I don't know if I can get this to go back. All right, there we go. Pressing the button, and sometimes the button doesn't want to go. I don't know why it's doing that to me tonight. But anyways, the results from last week, I had this one correct on that data. Yes, I did go 3-3 here in the Gulf Coast Blitz as well last week, and lost a few games there. I had Cocoa over Venice. I was almost right. I would have been 4-2. But regardless, that's why they play the games on the field, and I am just the commentator or picker or whatever you want to call me. All right. My results are 25-11 for the season. It's 0.694 on my results here. Not bad. Not bad. Not bad. Being almost 70% right, I will take it. All right. With that said, we are going to roll into our first game on the pick six, and that is Mulberry at Hardy. 4-0. Mulberry 2-2. Hardy. It's a huge district game for both teams, and no one expected these two teams to be where they are this week. Mulberry coming off a 47-0 victory over Discovery, and while Hardy was off last week, and yep, and but this one of Hardy being at home, it's not actually, Mark. You say you better beware when you have to play Mulberry at the Phosphate Bowl, and that's the stadium there in Mulberry, but. Here's the thing. This is what when I was doing my research about this game. This is what I was thinking, looking at it. Okay, I wasn't expecting Mulberry to be here in this situation at 4-0. I was expecting Hardy to actually be better than Mulberry at this point coming into the game here. Now, Mulberry is putting up over 35 points a game. Hardy's struggling to get above 20 points per game, and honestly, that doesn't convince me. In the situation that Hardy is really doing what they can to put more points up on the board. Matter of fact, when we're comparing the numbers, Mulberry is averaging 335 yards per game, but that lends to what Emery was saying about that. That Mulberry hasn't really played anyone above 500 or above. But I mean, defensively, even defensively, Mulberry is playing much better on that side, and averaging 3 sacks a game. I mean, this is hard, and as much as I want to take Hardy in this situation, I just feel like the struggles there where I thought Hardy would be at this point. I thought Hardy would be at 4-0 at this point coming into this game. I didn't have Mulberry at this point. And this is where I'm kind of struggling. But right now, my pick is actually going to Illinois. I'm sorry. It's Mulberry on this situation. I feel like it's just Mulberry is coming in more excited, I guess, and more amped up. I'm just, where the couple of losses that Hardy has taken, I wasn't expecting those. I was not expecting those losses. And I know there's frustration with Hardy, considering that they do have some good guys on the team this year. So, with that said, my pick's Mulberry. I'm rolling into the second game here, and that's Lakeland Christian at 4-0, Carrollwood Day 2-3. I know we've already had a lot of discussion about that between the two teams here, between the Vikings and the Patriots. And my thing is this. I mean, Okay, Lakeland Christian beating George Deacon too. I mean, they're a 7A school, 41-3. That was the score from last week. I mean, honestly, for me, it just really, I'm looking at this Lakeland Christian. To me, the schedule they have played. Everybody's saying, "Oh, well, Carrollwood Day." Again, they have played a tougher schedule, and I feel like that helps when you play a tougher schedule. I know people are going to take Lakeland Christian. I know the records. I mean, this is where records sometimes can be deceiving, in my opinion. But when we got to look at it, let's look at this for a moment. Who else? Oh, yes. Cardinal Newman. Yes. Booker. Yes. Teams that were playoff teams that made deep playoff runs last year, teams that are doing really well again this year for the most part. And honestly, I mean, I say this and I'm looking at this. I mean, Lakeland Christian is, yes, averaging 43.8 points per game. Carrollwood Day only 28.2. But here's the thing. Again, the schedule. I'm gonna harp on the schedule for a moment. I'm saying schedule, and I am taking Carrollwood Day because I feel like this is where the schedule will come into play. If Lakeland Christian wins, hey, hats off to them. I'll give them props next week, recapping it. But sometimes I just have to go what my intuition is feeling on this one. But if the game gets postponed, then we'll come back and revisit this game later on. So we'll go from there. But as far as now, the game's still on. And then Carrollwood Day's my pick. All right, this game actually was not on my initial list for the pick six because I had Vanguard and Lecanto as the game in this slot here. But just a couple hours before the show came around, I got notification that game has actually been moved to October 11th because both teams, both Vanguard and Lecanto, have the same bye week. So they went ahead and moved that game to week 8 now. And with that said, Bishop Road First Baptist, not a bad game here. And so I will say this is a good quality game of putting in for a substitute here for this week. And as I go looking at it, the Vikings coming off a 49-28 loss to Cardinal Mooney. But again, as you know, First Baptist coming off that 31-13 victory over Port Charlotte. Vikings averaging 45.8 points per game, but nearly giving up 36 points a game. And this is where First Baptist defense will play really, really well at because they have only given up 5 points per game so far. And they're 4-0, not 5-0. I mistyped that when I was putting it in, but they're actually 4-0, not 5-0. So for First Baptist. And honestly, I feel like that's the striking difference here. And this is where I feel like Bishop Road, hey, starting off hot, 2 losses in a row. I feel like First Baptist picks up win number 5, gives Bishop Road their 3rd loss this season. So that's where I'm at with 3 of these games. And as we roll along here into game number 4 in our pick 6, Cardinal Newman 5-0 at Jesuit 2-2. And this is a good matchup. Cardinal Newman making up their 2nd trip up to Hillsborough County this year. First, they played Carrollwood Day. Now they've got Jesuit. I'm battling Catholic schools here, by the way. Oh, all right. Looking at this, it's another road trip on deck for Cardinal Newman. As I said, they're coming off a 48-0 victory over Clewiston, while the Jesuit coming off a bye week. Cardinal Newman averaging 42.6 points per game, while Jesuit's putting up 34, and that's pretty good for both teams. But Cardinal Newman averaging 360 yards per game, Jesuit 290. So again, some comparable numbers here when we look at it. But here's the big thing. Jesuit's going to have to control and contain Cardinal Newman's passing game, and they're averaging 227 yards per game. And they've got to be able to keep that in check if they're going to hand Cardinal Newman their first loss for Jesuit. So, honestly, when I look at it, Jesuit's played a tough schedule. I mean, yes, one of their losses is to Valdosta, Georgia, and Valdosta is no pushover. So we got to think about that. But the strong schedule for Jesuit, I don't know if that's going to be necessarily enough, but Cardinal Newman, they've got some athletes, and they have been playing really, really well. And I feel like they're going to be the team that will contend with Chaminade Madonna down there in the southern region, down in Region 3s and Region 3 and 4 for Class 1A. Actually, it might be one. I want to say it might actually be Region 4 down in 1A for both of those teams. So, and I'll say this: both of those teams, in my opinion, they're They're going to go at it. Cardinal Newman, I feel like, is going to actually win this game. I'm taking Cardinal Newman to keep the undefeated streak going here and to take the win over the Jesuit Tigers this week. All right. Pinellas Park at Manatee. This is a district game here for both teams. Pinellas Park coming off a 41-10 victory over Gibbs, while Manatee rolled the IMG Academy White 44-7. District 5A9. So one of these two teams is going to take the driver's seat. It's only 3 teams in that district. Braden River is in that district as well. Pinellas Park averaging 34.6 points a game. Manatee 38.2 points a game. When it comes to this, both teams are averaging about the same amount of yards per game, 334 for Pinellas Park, Manatee 329, but I feel like the difference here comes down to the schedule. Pinellas Park has not played the quality of schedule that Manatee has had so far at this point, and honestly, that's the biggest difference here, and I'll throw the fact in that Manatee is a hard place to play at, especially there where they're at Joe Canaan Field. Yes. And I honestly think at this point, it's Manatee. Jaquez Green's team is going to be ready for this one, and I am taking the Hurricanes for the win here. Yes, I am taking Manatee for the win. All right, we got one more game left on the pick 6 here. Naples at Dunbar. Yes, a huge District 4A-12 showdown. Naples coming off that victory at Golden Gate. Dunbar blew past East Lee County 54-12 last week. Of course, Naples' only loss is to American Heritage Plantation. And Naples averaging 40 points per game. Dunbar 36 a game. And that's pretty doggone good. And I think this is going to be a tight ball game, honestly, between these two teams. These two teams have a history, especially when it comes to playoffs. And it's going to be no different. This is going to be like a playoff game. It's going to feel like a playoff game for both the Golden Eagles and the Tigers. But here's the thing. Naples averages more than 400 yards per game. Dunbar's only averaging 266. Those are big. And I feel like that's going to be the difference maker, is that Naples will edge out just in the yards alone. But that scoreboard's going to be very, in terms of the margin, it's going to be very, very small. I feel like it's going to be small, like between 1 to 5 points at best. It could be up to 7, but I honestly, Dunbar to me will give Naples everything. But Naples is just, I feel like will have enough on the offensive side to just pull out that win. And that's where I am going. I don't know why I changed it. I changed it. I know I put it in there, but it's and I think I thought I put it in there correctly in the scene, because I noticed that's from last week's and I just updated it. And but my pick is Naples, so we'll go for that. So Naples for the win this week by a edge. So yes, that is the pick 6 for week number 6 here on the Gulf Coast Blitz here. And yes, as we get ready to wrap this thing up here, we'll see what happens if these games go off here. It's a lot going on around the Sunshine State here in terms of what's going to happen here with the tropical weather. We'll find out here as we go roll along. But as far as we know, everything is scheduled as normal. We'll keep updates there on FortHSFootball.com. Just go to FortHSFootball.com. There's a live blog sitting up there. I'll update it as often as I can, as time allows. And as we find out when games are being rescheduled again or when being moved around, some have been moved around, as you've already heard, especially some of those games in Polk County. But all right, there's some comments here in the box here, and I'm gonna pull them up here because I want to share them. Emory Williams Smith said Hardy gives up an average of 15 points a game, and Mulberry gives up about 6 points a game. So he believes defense will most likely determine the outcome of the game, and that's where I feel like that's going to be the biggest thing. It's the defense, not offense. Defense will determine the outcome of the game between Mulberry and Hardy this week, which it's a 3-team district there that includes Hardy, Mulberry, and DeSoto County, and whoever wins that game is going to have a control of the driver's seat in that district this week. And a lot of people are agreeing between Manatee and Naples with the picks here, and yeah, and he's Emory's comments also I do agree that it's a tough game to pick. Mulberry's played a bunch of cupcakes so far. Hardy's quarterback struggles to pass the ball, so offense mostly runs the ball instead, and that's what he said that. So yes, and that's where it's hard to pick on sometimes on these games. I will tell you that very much so. And bro, appreciate you, Emory. Thank you so much for the comments here, and I definitely appreciate that. I'm glad I provide a great show for y'all to watch and listen to each and every week. And not only it's a great show, Josh. Go Polk County. Everyone stay safe. And yes, throw out the blowout losses to Mooney and Booker, and the Sarasota Sailors would be 3-0. Oh man, Mark. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you on that. Your Sarasota Sailors. Hey, we'll give. Hey. 3-2. Hey, I mean, that's not bad considering if that's the case. I mean, Sarasota, I mean, I know there's been some struggles here, but hey, hopefully the Sailors will do well this week. We'll see that. We'll see what happens on the other side of this. All right. With that said, it is time to wrap this up here on the Gulf Coast Blitz here on FloridaHSFootball.com. Appreciate everybody joining us here and watching. Watch the Gulf Coast Blitz every Monday night, 8:30 to 9:15. Of course, follow us on social media at FloridaHSFootball on X/Twitter at FLAHSFootball. Until next week, or actually until tomorrow, to the Drive the State show at 6 o'clock, and then the North Florida Blitz South Florida Blitz at 7:30, North Florida Blitz at 8:30. We'll see you tomorrow right here on FloridaHSFootball.com.